All right, this is Cabin Conversations, a bi-weekly podcast at Woodlands Church. Yeah, currently. No, this has been, it's been every other week for 5 weeks now. We were on, then off, then on, then off, then on.
Yeah.
It's only 5 weeks because we, border it, right? Bookend it with on stuff.
Sure. That makes good
sense.
sense.
But in theory, we will certainly continue to be a regular podcast moving forward. But in theory, we'll be back
We are regular.
next week. Yeah, we're just regularly irregular.
Yeah.
So
defining regular right now means every other.
Well, I'm Dave here with co-host Whitney.
Hi, Dave.
We're glad to have you back, Whitney, too, because two weeks ago
I was gone.
You were gone, and I was gone last week, which was great.
So
we enjoyed that.
Good to take time away.
It is, but I've been saying this to everyone. I'm such a rhythm guy.
Yeah.
That a spring break with homeschool kids is just like the least rhythmic thing ever. And so I've been saying I'm excited for the regular rhythm of work weeks and scheduled weeks and things like that. So
I think too, there's been there's just been a lot of interruption to weeks. It feels like, I remember 3 weeks before spring break, I was like, we're going to have like 3 weeks of regularity here. And it was like, nope. Something happened that Monday, Tuesday. And then the next Monday, Tuesday, something else happened. I was like, okay, just.
Stability brings health, I think. And it's maybe felt a little unstable, not in a bad way, but just in a way. So our guest this week is none other than Elizabeth Smith. Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Is this your first time on
No.
this season? No.
Oh, this season.
Yes,
yes.
this season.
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No, I know it's been in the past.
Yes. I should have let you finish. I apologize.
You were on season 2. Who were you on with?
Mia and I
Okay.
were on one when we were talking about Mark 1.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
I happened to see a note on that when I was working in Mark for a school thing this morning. So.
But that wasn't Mark 1 during the transition summer, right?
It was.
It was?
Mm-hmm.
We were
I think
recording the summer, Mark? I don't think so.
You at least recorded one with Mia and I.
That would have been the end
We recorded one episode on Mark 1, and where it landed, I mean, that would make sense, right? That's when you were.
That was
Mia
tail
was
end of
here.
season 2.
Mia was interning. I was
Okay.
covering Tori's role in kids.
Okay. Transitions and changes and things like that.
yeah.
So, and now you are a full-time resident here.
I'm a full-time resident.
Full-time ministry
Yes.
leadership resident and a full-time student as well
That's
on the same
also
time.
true.
Because
Full-time,
you're
yeah.
doing everything and looking ahead to where God has you next.
Yeah.
Because that's part of this crazy journey that we have with residency is that a heartbeat for our residents is we want to place them in full-time ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're looking ahead, which is exciting. And kind of what's your heart?
I am open-handed with where the Lord is leading. I am confident that He has a path and He has a plan, and He's been making steps clear along the way. And that's enough clarity to take steps and move forward, even if I don't have a clear picture of the outcome.
Yeah.
I'm excited for where He's leading, and we've talked about this a lot, but thinking of residency as a time of learning, of looking, and then launching, and we're nearing that, and there's some sad things in that, but a lot of excitement with where God is leading, and
we are just so confident that God is growing His church, and you're part of that, which we're really excited about, and the rhythm of launching ministry residence is going to be a bittersweet one.
Oh, for sure.
As we continue to lean into this, because it's like, hey, come be part of us for a year. We're going to love you and you're going to be part of this. And then sayonara.
Then we have to release you.
But I think that's, how much of the Christian walk is that? Is walking with the expectation that God is the one who orders our steps. And there's freedom in that. That's what I'm hearing you say too, is that knowing that you have a good Father who has good plans for you is a very freeing place to be.
Absolutely.
So, and Elizabeth, just again to affirm this, I've said, you were in 6th grade when I started.
Yep.
You were in Awana.
I was in Awana.
Did I give you a Timothy Award?
I got a Timothy Award, so you probably did.
I probably gave you a Timothy Award. Hot daggity dog. That's awesome.
I think I was one of 2.
Probably one of very few people to whom I gave a Timothy Award.
I don't know what the Timothy Award is.
It's like the final award of TNT.
Done all of them?
Through 6th grade in Awana.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you need to do Sparks to get, it's just the TNT. It's 4 books in TNT gets you a Timothy Award. I think that's what it is.
That could be.
but anyway, that's just a long history. And, I've gotten to know you through sitting to school and through navigating health challenges and through just now this residency. And I've said before, but I just really affirm your heart for following God and your trust in who he is and your discernment. It humbles me. It's really, really cool. So it's been fun to get to know you and work with you in this last year too. So
thanks, Dave.
Yeah. We have been asking our guests.
I have one.
Oh,
You have one. Oh, you have one.
I mean, is
Go
that
for
where
it.
you're going?
Yeah.
We're using the opener questions from
okay.
resources. So you might have already done this with your life group. Maybe? Did you meet on Sunday?
Well,
Or
we
had
there
lost
was
power.
Yeah, you didn't have power.
out by us, we lost power right
Yeah.
around 4 p.m. Anyway, okay. So this is brand new for you.
All right,
Describe a time when you had a really significant meal.
I wrote that question.
What were the circumstances? Who was there? What did you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. hmm
Do you have a significant meal? We can give her a hot minute.
I mean, I was gonna pivot a little bit and piggyback off of something John talked about, but
Okay.
I got to be part of a Seder meal.
You did?
In Jerusalem,
Oh, man.
which was just super cool.
Yeah.
So, and there was just deep. Well, so I was part of a Passover. Maybe not. No, it was part of a Sabbath in Jerusalem.
Okay.
But a Seder meal, a Passover Seder meal at my mom's table once.
Oh, cool.
Which was just really sweet to go through those processes and to think through the table and all of the components of that. And there's a richness when there's deep symbolism tied to the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
So that was rich. When I think through significant meals, and I bet you're going to mirror this, it's always about the people I was with, right? I don't even know if I know the food. There was one, I can remember a significant meal where there was some espresso crusted steak.
Oh,
That
well,
I
that
remember
doesn't sound
that food.
bad.
I remember that food. But otherwise, it's all about the people,
Yeah.
right? So, Elizabeth?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can think of a lot of sweet meal times with people. But like a recurring memory that comes to mind is having Thanksgiving dinner, particularly with both sides of the family, but particularly growing up with my dad's side of the family, which was very large, anywhere from 20 to 50 people. It never started on time. It was usually like, oh, we'll eat by 1. And then, the turkey starts getting cooked at 1. So
on your
we
4
eat-
hours later. Yeah.
I don't know. We
Okay.
eat late afternoon. We eat, and then they're like, okay, everyone's going to just share something they're thankful for from the last year. And so let's just say we have 25 people. The first person goes and they say, well, last December, and we get a year recap from everyone at the table. 3 hours later, we bring out pie.
Wow.
Another hour goes
So
by.
it's an experience.
It's just so long and
Smith family
unscheduled
Thanksgivings.
and often dramatic, and just those are some sweet childhood memories
Yeah.
of that time.
And it's about it's with the people.
Yeah.
It's the people and us. So, what about you, Whitney?
People and location, I think. I think every time we have a meal with our small group, there's something significant about that. There's something significant about sharing a table and sharing fellowship and breaking bread together that is really hard to put your finger on what it is. Part of it, I think, is the intimacy of sharing a table. That it's like in your home. We get to the point of like, where the silverware is. I'm going to forget to put something out. Like, go find it. You know where it is in the kitchen.
Yeah, go through my
kind of
cupboards.
thing.
Go through my cupboards.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah. So, but my favorite ones are when the weather is nice enough that we can have it on our porch and the sun's setting. Those are fun. But also when the table's so big that you just got to keep adding chairs, and like eventually you get to the rule of like, hey, if you're under 5, you are going to have a place to sit, but it might be the floor. If you're over 50, you are going to have a back to your chair. In between there's just like, we're not sure.
You're going to perch
You're
somewhere.
gonna, there's going to be a place
We'll
for
give you
you.
a perch.
Yeah. But I think also small, intimate meals. I think about, so one that's coming to mind, and I'm not sure why, is when we launched Young Adults, we had a leadership team behind it that came out to our house, and it was just like the dreaming stage and like planning and what has gone well and what hasn't gone well, and what do we feel like God has brought around this table that will help launch and then maintain this ministry. And it was a really like diverse group of people that weren't familiar to me. That was a fun moment too. So, yeah.
Where there can be a level of intimacy about dreams or visions. And that's probably something you really experienced, Elizabeth, around your Thanksgiving table is there's a closeness of a community when people have been living, they've done life together for their entire lives. And there's a depth. And that leads to Sunday's topic, the table, and this incredibly intimate, profound experience that Jesus and his 12 disciples had around the table. I guess we start, I just want to acknowledge Elizabeth wrote that opener bumper thing, which I thought did such a good job highlighting the weird experience for Judas. I don't want to say weird, he was
uncomfortable.
Yeah, and he should have been uncomfortable.
Right, exactly,
he was
appropriately so.
not a great moment for that man. But what, as you kind of process that, Elizabeth, I'll put you on the spot. What did you think through that? I mean, you think in terms of drama and skits and things like that. What were you trying to capture?
Yeah. Well, I also think that a lot of helpful vision came out of some of the planning meetings before that, and some of the notes that you guys had all provided for the direction that you wanted the service to take, and focusing on that betrayal in a place that was supposed to bring unity and celebration, and then the connection with the future hope we have, and that all things will be made
today,
new and made
but
right.
One day.
Yeah.
Love, that's a good line.
It's in all of them.
It's a great line.
So.
Should be.
So it was I sat in the text reading the different accounts of the Last Supper, and just sort of followed some of those emotional trains, focusing particularly on Judas and that theme of betrayal, and Jesus's attitude in that, and his love and grace still demonstrated to Judas in his sacrificial and humble washing of all of the 12's feet, knowing what Judas would do, knowing what all of them would do. I think there's a lot of emotion in there. That was something, to sort of see that escalating tension, to feel that, it just leads into what was going to happen over that one day as Jesus was arrested and tried and crucified. Yeah.
How, so the foot washing experience for Jesus with his disciples, he's teaching. That was one of John's points of what Jesus was doing there in the upper room. But none of the texts highlight him washing Judas's feet, do they?
Not explicitly.
Not explicitly. And that was we highlighted that a little in the intro, which would have just been this really profound moment. He washed Judas's feet.
Which is speculation. I mean, it's not Judas is there.
Yeah, he washed the disciples' feet. So
including
almost,
Judas.
Yep. But almost all of the texts highlight, I don't know if John does, but all the synoptic texts highlight Peter's response. Yeah. Not I, Lord, not I. That's so interesting to think that that's the one that it's highlighted. It's Peter who's brazen and brash and all Peter-like. But that's the one that it dwells on. There's just so many emotions that Jesus must have been going through and processing in that. So
I love that the skits, so just even hearing your process of sitting through, following some emotional lines, we don't often talk about having a biblical imagination, but what we're sitting in is a story, and what you've taken is different accounts and put together a picture in a way that allows the congregation to experience a little bit of what it means to have a biblical imagination within bounds, right? It's not just go imagine what this is like. Here's an example. Here's a skit. I love that. I love that when we talk about the different gospels, it's looking at a different facet of a diamond, or there's so many ways to talk about how those are written. But to then put together a piece that's like, can you imagine what this could have been like? And pulling true pieces into it. And he washed all 12 feet. We don't know if Judas's legs
Probably
were
24 feet.
Well,
probably.
yeah, all 12. You're right, Matt. Wow, good one, Dave. We don't know if he was shaking or not, but can you imagine?
Yeah.
What it would? It begs you to say, what would it be like if you had spent years with a man, studying under him, loving him, and then deciding to betray him?
Well, I don't think we can even understand what that, because, your portrayal of it in the skit, Elizabeth, and I think every one of our perceptive portrayals is shaking and nervousness. But I think we don't have any cultural connection to having our feet washed or the view we have towards a foot washer per se. There might have been levels of disgust even. I don't know. I don't know what the cultural realities would have been. But I think that's one of the things that a biblical imagination really invites, is you get to consider your preconceptions.
Yeah.
And I think we knowing, John's account, having thus loved those who are in the world, he then shows the full extent of his love. Like, we know that. Peter didn't know Jesus was showing the full extent of his love in that moment. So just such fascinating things to grapple with. Do you think we'll get to see? No, we won't.
Get to see
heavenly video clips of the actual moment. I don't think that we will. So.
Yeah, I don't. All the fantasy novels that I read are like now coming into play of like, here, let me show you my memory. Nope, I don't think that's going to happen.
No,
I don't think we get that.
No, and that's too like the
fantasy world.
The biblical weight, the biblical truth of that account is in the biblical text. It's not in the event either. So anyway, so Sunday, the table, we had this exploration of that, but we also had this incredibly beautiful, rich experience of communion together as a community. What all three of us are also pre-auditorium, pre-COVID Woodlands attendees.
Wow.
How was it passing elements? And
we used to do that. Yeah.
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 Is that memorable? Did it stand out at all?
And I wouldn't say Sunday particularly brought me back to that place. I think there's elements of me now in the role of just being on staff and being sometimes part of what happens on a Sunday. I think of logistics too much. It takes my mind out of it. And I wish that was something that were not true. So there was a neat moment when I got to take the plate from somebody else. And then I was like, okay, I know what's coming next. Can I be still enough to put that outside of my mind? Turns out I can for about 20 seconds.
Elizabeth, what was your experience on Sunday?
I was not in the room.
Oh, you didn't go to church. No,
I did go. Well,
I'm just kidding.
Argue about that. I was watching from the compassion table.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah,
Sure. You were continuing to work in that area. Yeah. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. I will gladly advocate for compassion partnerships anytime. Compassion, it's a great thing to partner with because we're sowing seeds for eternity.
And you shared so well 2 weeks ago too. That was really, really cool. But Whitney, your comment about logistics, I'm part of the service planning. And so I knew that there was and transparently, I often look at order of service during the service just to be like, all right, what's coming up on my phone? And so I'd looked and it's like, okay, it's this 16-minute sermon, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 5-minute song, 3-minute taking of the elements, and then an 8-minute sermon bit. And so second service, when John came up and he didn't seat people, I told my family, I'm like, we're not going to stand. We're sitting down. My wife's like, why are we sitting? And I'm like, because he forgot to sit us. He's talking for 8 minutes here. And then he talked for 2 minutes and then just went on into the rest of the message or rest of the worship. Yeah. She's like, why did you sit us? We should have been standing. That was weird. And I'm like, there is this element of it takes you out.
Piece. I don't love that. So it only really happens. The only time I'm really in tune with what's happening is with the specifics of and this weekend in particular had a lot of different elements happening. A lot of people had to do specific things. So like overall, I think Colton was holding the whole bit from beginning to end and knowing what had to happen. And I heard from him several times what had to happen. But within that, just there's parties that were responsible for their bit.
Yeah.
And it was very doable for them. But I also knew timing was something. So even like prior to starting, I had whatever time I had for announcements, and John's like, I'm going to go real short for the second bit, and I want you to like expand a little bit more on compassion. And so he told me that like as we're doing the run through, and I was like, okay, so I'm going 2.5 minutes over, and I know everybody's got a little bit of heartburn of how this thing is going to play out, and I'm going to automatically go 2.5 minutes over. So, so there's that reality of what it means to be a part of the worship service at Woodlands. And I'm thankful that it only happens when I'm as an announcement person, when I'm the service host. And then otherwise I can pretty much check out. And I know what's being preached because that's part of the being a part of the curriculum team is, you know, the outline, and you have a pretty good idea of where the preacher's going. But outside of that, I don't, and I can just kind of be a part of the service. So,
yeah. We're all a part of like all of these pieces.
Yeah.
Like Elizabeth, you're on the curriculum team, and as a resident, you're now out of the production world, but for a good 8 weeks, you were pretty embedded in the production process behind the scenes. And Whitney, you do curriculum and teaching team developing and stuff like that. And I'm involved in too. And Elizabeth, have you found that production side to pull you out of the worship experience on a Sunday morning?
Well, it may be because I'm young and naive and still new to the game, but I actually thought it kind of enhanced my engagement.
Okay.
I found that too when I joined the curriculum team 2 years ago. That I had more buy-in, which was on me for not having buy-in before. But I had more buy-in. I had more investment in the text. I'd spent more time in the text beforehand, and felt like I was able to come into service with a better heart posture, ready to engage with the sermon in a different way. And I especially felt that with the worship components while we were in production as residents, that hearing the songs, watching them intentionally and prayerfully practice and prepare helped my heart prepare to worship with the congregation in a different way, and in a less me-focused way, because I wasn't just coming in and hearing a song and reacting to it as an individual, but was able to take a step back, see the bigger picture, and then join in the congregation.
Do you think it allowed you to see it less as a production, and you were able to see more the production elements as expressions of worship?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure, to see all of the intentionality, all of the prayer, the time, the thoughtfulness, and to remember, like, we're all real people. Like, just because we might be on staff or a volunteer who's highly involved in the production side of a Sunday morning, we're all part of the same
church,
priesthood, the same the same people of God, and we're just stewarding the responsibilities God has given us in different ways, because that's what God has for us to do.
That's super helpful.
And to be fair, you can engage with text that's going to be preached on Sunday, because now it's available.
Yes.
Like, and it hadn't been for a really long time, so it was something that you were just coming kind of a little bit blind to, of where we would. I mean, usually we'd walk through a book, so you kind of knew the next bit, but you didn't know how big it would be. But the intentionality to have the text printed ahead of time so that people can be in it and studying it and have a little bit more heart preparation, mind preparation for what you're going to be hearing on Sundays has been, I think, a incredible movement forward as a church to be engaged with what's happening on Sunday. Yeah, and
thank you both for your involvement in helping to equip and empower our congregation to engage with God's Word through Bible 101 stuff, through curriculum stuff, through those book study guides. I've been hearing a lot of people lately talking about how that has helped their confidence in approaching God's word, that's helped their excitement in approaching God's word, and has helped their engagement in Sundays, that it is less about, I'm just showing up and listening to the sermon, but like, no, I've been studying it. Like, I'm holding them accountable because I've been doing work and I have questions and I want to.
Are people saying that?
Yeah. No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. God is moving and he's growing his church, and thank you guys for being a part of that.
Yeah. How many guides did you print for Chosen Exiles? Do you remember?
Whatever I printed, I know Hannah had to do I had to do 50 more. I had to do 40 more. So
I think you did like 160 the first time. So I think
so. I think we were at like
250 ran out the door sort of thing. That's a lot of people who are taking the intentional step. I'm guessing transparently, not everyone's using it, but also more people are studying the passage then because you get that in other ways too. So that's a really rich testimony to a church that is providing increasing opportunities to go deep, right, and study the text in profound ways.
And to kind of lean back to the production piece, without the forward planning that we have in place right now, that wouldn't be possible to be able to create these kinds of things and these kinds of resources to put in people's hands. So there is a real beauty to the heartbeat and the planning that goes around what's happening on a Sunday morning to build up the body of Christ that's coming here and worshiping here. So
you talked, Whitney, in as we started this about communion, that did you feel a communal value in passing the elements?
Yeah, for sure. Of knowing the person I connected, I knew his name. Thanks, person. I'm not going to say his name out loud. And then pass it to somebody I knew. Yeah. So there's just that, and I have not shared a table with that gentleman. So there's. Yeah, there's something neat about there are definitely positives to passing the plate. I know I get that there's also negatives, but there's positives.
There's logistical. One of the logistical realities that probably went really unnoticed is we passed 2 cup trays. That means we needed twice the number of trays.
Sure.
We had to borrow those from a church in Wausau. So like the amount of planning even to get enough trays.
Sure.
So I just heard Devin say earlier, he's like, I bought 10 gallons of grape juice. So only used 2.5. So
math is hard, let me tell you.
He's like, we were not going to run out. I was going to have enough grape juice. And we did.
But also grape juice can ferment if we don't use it up.
It can't get worse than the stuff that came in the individual cups.
Right.
So, but that planning.
Did you? I mean, you asked me that question. Did you feel a communal element to passing the elements to having hold the thing?
I don't think I was like, I like the passing out. I get really nervous. Like, I don't want to get surprised by it. That's always my thing. So I'm always like, where are they coming from? Who's got the tray? Is it coming from my left, from my right?
That's the logistic brain that even if I'm not connected to the production of it, I'm like, where is it? How fast is it coming? Who am I going to get it from? Is that one? That one? Oh, should they skip somebody?
Got to get that person. Get back there. So I think that's a failing on my part. I do. There's a level of like the preparatory heart to come in and worship genuinely. I feel like that's a lot of work, especially probably Whitney, you were saying, like the closer you are to the production side of it. And it's a personality thing too. 100%. Like I am fully a production personality. Like I want to understand how things are working and who's doing what. And, but I've heard from enough people so far that there is an element. And then as you were just talking, Whitney, like knowing the names of the people that you're passing to and from, you know, for a while we were flirting with the idea on this podcast of like talking to people around you in the room.
Introduce yourself.
But there is an element, like there was a single gal sitting in front of me that she was just by herself. And I don't know if she has community or knows other people, but there wasn't anyone to her left or to her right directly. And I wonder if there's not an element in a community. You think about how communion, you think about Paul's admonition in 1 Corinthians against how communion was being practiced as a non-communal event. Like it is communal. It's communion, both with God, but with one another. And so might there not be a place where it's like, hey, just get the names of the people and share. Like, so thank you, Whitney. And here, Elizabeth, you know, that would be interesting. So
Yeah, I mean, I also think that there's something unique in passing it, that there's sort of this trust that has to be there.
Especially with the juice
John
trays.
talked about that.
Yeah, like you have to, to some extent, you be in tune enough to the people around you. And I think that, I don't know, this language is on my mind, but to reinforce this idea of autonomous interdependence, like we are individuals, but we need to depend on one another. We were made to do that in the body of Christ, and that the Lord's Supper, communion, is one of the ways that we do that as a church, and that it tangibly expresses the gospel and nourishes the believers. And I think that increasing those communal reminders is a way to faithfully live out those principles.
And I wonder how many of those tangible reminders go unnoticed, but can be reinforced and do reinforce.
Yeah. And I think even, this is not the first time we've processed this, but one of your points was just having 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever block of time we were given. It had to be close to 12 to 15 minutes.
It was technically 5, 3, 5, and 3. So John was supposed to process 3.
Per the service
5, 3,
order.
5, and 3.
So that's 16 minutes. Yeah.
Just the amount of space and time it was given allowed a slowdown and a reflective piece to it, where you can introduce, even if we're not passing the plate, you can introduce different communal aspects of what it is to take the table together. This unifying thing where it doesn't matter who you are, you can come to the table. There's so many ways to reinforce that I think what I really liked about it is how much time and reflection was given to the space. Because sometimes we do that in like 3 minutes.
3.5.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I liked the time and space given to it, especially because we only do it once a month-ish. I think there's a beauty then giving some time to remember what unifies us. The thing that unifies us is the body and the blood of Jesus. And there's all kinds of things that we can get twisted around and talk about and spin out on, but this is come back to the unity of the table. It's a beautiful thing.
One thing that John asked us or invited us to do that I just think is so profound is the holding of the bread in that space and that time. I really love there's a tangible nature to it. And communion is one of the few tangible reality, gospel interactions we have. I mean, we have interpersonal interactions, those are gospel ones, but there's that's why baptism and communion are both so profound, because I talk to someone and they're like, well, I don't know if I'm really, saved. I'm like, well, there's lots of things you can talk about. Well, one of the things I often talk about is, were you baptized? Like, did you experience a believer's baptism? Baptism doesn't save you, but baptism is a tangible moment, defining moment of declaration. Why'd you get baptized? You ask questions like that. Like, you've been like, yes, point back and remember that. There's a tangible experience and expression of interacting with Jesus and his death that happens in communion that I think is profound, that should not be minimized. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that unity piece is so huge, and the profound reality that his body was broken so that he could make one new body. And just sitting in that is insane. And it's like a weighty thing personally, but it's meant to be done congregationally, and that we sit in that reality together as believers, as followers of Jesus, as those who have been bought by his blood and made into his body. And that, we are chosen exiles according to the foreknowledge of the Father and in the sanctifying work of the Spirit, and to obedience and sprinkling with the blood of the Son. And that's who we are now, because of what Jesus has done in giving his body and blood for us, and to sit in that together, in that brokenness that points to the wholeness. Yeah. It's, really beautiful.
It's a profound mystery, a beautiful mystery. So, which is great. So, my big processing takeaway, reminder, personal for me, is just the need to prepare my heart to walk into these services better. I even remember, I met up with my wife and my daughter who are going in, and I'm like, Whitney's doing announcements. We got to get up there. I want to hear how the voiceover thing.
Yeah.
I want to be in the room and settled for that. So no offense to your announcements. I just want to be there by the end of the announcements. And we're always moving a little late or stuff like that. But I'm just thinking I want to hear that bit and how it hits. And that's not how I can walk into church. That's a production mindset or whatever. But to be able to process, okay, I want to go into the community and then worship.
So what does that tangibly look like? Because just because you and I have some production bits behind us and you'll walk in with some of that too, doesn't mean that not everybody needs to prepare their hearts to walk into worship. So what does that look like for you this coming week?
Yeah, I think it's what is going through my mind and heart as I walk into the room. That's really the intentionality of it.
So just being aware of that?
I think that's the starting point for me. So it's like, a lot of people who have talked about family life have learned that the car ride home from work to home is a transition moment that takes heart preparation. And if I spend my whole car ride just processing things that went on at work, if I leave my heart at work, when I get home, like dad's walking in the door and the kids are ready for dad. And if,
but the husk of dad is walking through the door.
Yeah,
his heart's
my
left
heart's
behind.
not there. So there's this moment that I get to transition. And I think that's, when I'm in the foyer, people are talking to me and we're sharing things and all of that stuff. There's ministry happening, relational, communal ministry. That's good. But I need to transition my heart to walk in as a worshiper too. I need to be a worshiper. That's really what it is. So some of it's just understanding identity pieces. And that's going to be true for everyone.
Yeah.
Whether you're production minded or not, you're coming in with the week or with the morning or with all the different things. And
turn on the water heater.
yeah. So,
so I think when we stand in the foyer, there might be things that people talk to us about having to deal with church doings and happenings, right? But also I think of group leaders that are seeing their group members and might have something heavy that's shared before that. So even the transition, like this is me getting like as tactile as I possibly can. There's 2 sets of doors you walk through. Like there's the one set and then there's like into the auditorium. Like is that space coming from what I was, like what my identity is and what the roles I play out there, walking in like, no, I'm a part of a body now and I get to worship as part of this body. And
using that airlock as that like
I don't know.
Tactile reminder.
Is that something?
So it's like, I've seen other churches on the way out. It says you are now entering the mission field. It's like that mindset reminder or something like that. But you are now entering the community. Like that's there's something cool there. So,
and to be fair, you were a part of the community.
Yeah.
But you're preparing to do something different as a part of that community than you were maybe in the foyer.
Yeah, and I'm not disengaging from my reality of knowledge of people when I'm in the room. The most profound worship experiences I have are when I know the story of the person I'm worshiping alongside and can proclaim the truth in the song with them in the midst of their brokenness. So that's it was a cool Sunday. It was a very experiential Sunday, I think, communal Sunday, despite the snow and ice and loss of power later Sunday.
Yeah, the reality in Stevens Point is very different from the reality just east of town. Like when I was driving home yesterday, it still felt like I was driving into Narnia with how much ice was on. It was like the most breathtaking, beautiful, stunning thing that I have seen in a long time in the natural world. But it's also super dangerous. Yeah. And a lot of things are breaking because of it. But what a strange tension.
Okay. Well, hey, this has been Cabin Conversations.
Yeah.
So thanks for
regular-ish podcast.
A regular-ish podcast. Thanks for being Elizabeth. It was great having you on. So
Thanks for
being
having
part.
me.
Yeah. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.